Hey, everybody, welcome to the Agency Operators Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Jack Connor of Almar Group. How you doing, Jack?
Good, Pasha. Thanks for having me on.
Really glad to have you here. As I can see, usually they say it's sunny California, but California has cloudy days too, it looks like, right?
hmm I mean, it was sunny 30 minutes ago, and it probably will be again later. So yeah, you're just catching like a weird little time.
Cool. Well, man, I'm excited to chat with you today. I know you're doing something that's pretty interesting, just because it's different than what you normally see in the
hmm
branding world, in the e-commerce world, and definitely wanted to ask a couple questions just to kind of get an understanding of who you serve and how you do it, um, your methodologies, and yeah. Before we dive into that, just kind of curious, how did you start Almary Group, and what kind of led you there? What were some of your experiences in your career that kind of put you in this position?
Yeah, I mean, my background is I worked in tech for a million years. Was a programmer, CTO'd like Silicon Valley companies, stuff like that. Then got into documentaries. Did documentaries for a couple years through sort of a random series of events that was very nice and fortuitous, and really got interested in the film industry. And I live outside LA, lived in LA for a long time, and so know just a million people that work in entertainment. And one of the observations that I had, kind of with this sort of mash of experiences, was that you know the advertising world is quickly changing. Social media advertising is getting more expensive. Some people can use it very well, but I also know a lot of people that have struggled. And then things like influencer marketing and like commercials, like literally commercials you shoot for TV or for YouTube, are like, I just heard a lot of people complaining about them. And my thesis on this was that a lot of can I swear on this podcast or no?
You're allowed one.
Okay, no, I'll keep it clean. I'll keep it clean. But our ability to, I was going to say BS detectors, but our ability to detect advertising is stronger than it's ever been. Like you watch YouTube and you're just like smashing that skip button on the commercial and you're not even watching it, or you're scrolling through Instagram and you don't even see the ads. Like it's these things do not work as effectively as they used to. One of the things now, simultaneously, you have a show like White Lotus, right?
Hmm.
And Sicily is putting out news, and they're putting out things saying like, we have too many tourists because of White Lotus, like stop coming here. And
Wow.
like, like the resort in Thailand is booked out for 3 years in advance and stuff like that. I go to Korea a lot. Like my wife is Korean, so we've it's a place that we went for our honeymoon and stuff like that. Korea, like you'll see restaurants with a line around the block, and it invariably is because it was in a K-drama. And so I started becoming very interested in like, well, if people on one side are kind of growing their immunity systems to traditional advertising. And additionally, like things like TV commercials, like who watches TV anymore? I mean, unless you're watching sports, it's my parents don't even watch TV anymore. They're on Netflix and streaming. You know what I mean? So, all these traditional channels it's not like they don't work, but they're getting more ineffective. Influencer marketing is the same way. Like influencer marketing can work really well, but like I've talked to people that have paid a lot of money to get, an influencer with 1 million+ Instagram followers, and barely moved any units as a result, because it doesn't, especially if the match doesn't work, it's ineffective. So I started exploring this concept. I'm also a big James Bond fan. I mean, the Bond movies are hit or miss, let's admit, but he has for sure sold more Aston Martins than all of their advertising dollars put together. And there's a famous case study where Heineken paid 45 million to get him to drink a Heineken Casino Royale. And at the time, people thought this was crazy, right? They're like, oh, that's way too much money. What are you doing? Bond can't drink a Heineken. He drinks martinis, yada, yada, yada. Heineken claims that they got like at least 5x their money back on that.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's Bond, and the Craig Bonds too. And Casino Royale was like, one of the best ever. So yeah, I mean, this is kind of like my theory for the way the market's moving is the advertising, where it's like I'm interrupting what you're watching to show an ad is not, there's so many ways to skip it and people are kind of immune to it. So we got to be more clever about it, and we got to be able to and it takes a lot of forms, like there's sponsored content. This isn't new, obviously. Like the idea of soap operas was these soap companies sponsored these like telenovela like things that my grandma used to watch. And I mean, the Twilight Zone was sponsored by cigarette companies. He would walk out smoking a cigarette and then the show would start. So this idea is not a new one, but I do think it is starting to take off in kind of a big way. And so, and especially for things like, we've had a lot of success with like luxury brands, like hotel groups, yachting companies, things like that, want to get to people, but also portray an image, so that's why I got into this business. And that's why I talked to your co-founder originally, and are exploring all the ways that this, kind of this whole industry is changing. And I think we're right. Like it's not like traditional advertising is going to go away, but I think that these kind of integrations and collaborations between brands and like creators or narrative things. Like we do a lot of work with like vertical drama companies or TV. Like like Stranger Things did tons of brand integration. They did like a Gatorade integration. I just saw at Target, to even things like Red Bull, like those. I have like an extreme sports background. I skateboard and was like competitive skateboard for 1,000,000 years. And Red Bull, you watch one of their videos, which is like some dude, in a squirrel suit jumping off the Burj Khalifa or whatever. And you don't think of it as, oh, this is a Red Bull commercial. It's just like awesome stuff you want to watch, But that's exactly what it is. Like it's branded Red Bull, like, top to bottom. It's not narrative. It's this like, I guess you'd call it reality or something, but it's this extreme sports thing. But they've kind of nailed it. Like they make, the concept being they make stuff people want to watch. You're there to watch it. And then you also are like, oh, and there's a bunch of Red Bull logos. So now I'm thinking about Red Bull, but you're not like, you don't feel like it's a commercial that's being shoved in your face. And you look at those videos on YouTube or like on Instagram, hundreds of thousands of likes, millions of views, just absolutely insane numbers. So yeah, so that's kind of like what we do is making these collaborations happen.
Was it Red Bull that did the Mount Everest snowboarding video?
I don't remember. I would assume yes. I could look it up, but I don't want to get like the click clack on your audio.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I watched that. It came up on my feed. It was like millions of views.
I bet I would guess it was.
And it's like that type of thing. Like they do that, and maybe Patagonia or some of these other, like North Face. They do that type of thing where it's just like really high quality filmmaking that also is produced by a brand that sells goods. And there's like that interesting merger that's happening. I'm starting to see that exactly what you're saying. The only thing is, I would say, advertising in the way of trying out an ad on a social media platform is pretty low ticket. It's like a low barrier to entry. You don't need to have really big production, whereas what you're doing really does require that higher level production value. And so it's an investment criteria that many brands can't reach. Would you say that's the case, or are there some lower value production that still works, but not, we're not talking about like Netflix level, could be
Hmm.
some of these other platforms, right?
Yeah. Um, yeah, you're totally right. There are also ways, like if you're, if you're a brand that's trying to get like your ginger shots, your new ginger shot brand that is, starting to be on shelves, there are low cost ways of doing this. One is that product placement can actually be quite cheap. Now, like product placement's definitely not for everybody in the sense of that is all about, like if you show up in a show, that's like awareness, but there's several on the marketing funnel, there's several steps from awareness to like the person hits the buy button with their, on Amazon or whatever.
Right.
So it does typically work for, sometimes it doesn't have to be big brands, but established brands that can think in long time horizons.
Hmm.
And I've had clients that, have talked to about this who have recommended like, no, you don't want to do like, you don't want to show up in something, you don't want to do like narrative, show up in a show or whatever. Like you need to get sales immediately. And that's probably, results driven social media, or something like that. But there's so many, the other factor here is if you're like a YouTube guy or something like that, is there are so many channels these days. Like, and by channels, I don't just mean like TV channels, but there are creators doing short films. There's micro influencers, and actually micro influencers, for anyone getting into influencers, like that is almost without a doubt the way to go. Like what we've seen, is if you're trying to, especially like I have some experience trying to push travel through influencers, and micro influencers will sell, like they'll have their rate of people interacting with whatever they do the post about, to clicking through to the site to making a booking, will be like 5x what it is if you get a macro influencer. you know Someone with, so if like 10 people with 300 followers or 500 followers can actually move some products. And alternatively, you get like, I don't know, like one of the lesser Kardashians or something to do some kind of like, not so great post about your thing. Um, and it might appeal to no one. You know what I mean? So, if, so there's that, there's a lot of, I mean, in LA right now, the LA entertainment industry is like struggling. We had a combination of government taxation and permitting increases mixed with a lot of other places offering incentives, mixed with like offshoring and yada yada yada. So there's a lot of people out of work in LA. Um, so it's also a thing where if you did, if you were a brand and you wanted to create, you were like interested in the idea of like, let's not make a commercial, let's make like a narrative thing. Let's make like a short film that has our product in it, or let's do something Red Bully, or something like like funny that uses actors and isn't explicitly a commercial. There's never been a better time to do it. Like you can find people, you can use Gen AI, for people who aren't against that. And so like it, for creative, for getting creative and working with people who are already doing creative stuff, like there's just endless possibilities. There's so
But
many people doing things.
where's the medium for where you would post this? Is that just social media, but you're just using it in a different way because you're posting organic, high quality film content that has
Hmm.
entertainment value, and that's the thing versus a micro influencer who would just be like, "Oh, I got this new product today and I really like it and you should check it out." Like very
Hmm.
like almost like semi, not maybe promotional, but like people at this point have already caught on that this is like sponsored content
Yeah.
from their favorite people that they genuinely probably like and follow, but they already understand that they're getting marketed for the most part.
Yeah.
But it works, and so they do it. It's like impulse buying on TikTok Shop and whatnot. This is a different approach where you're posting on the platforms versus being on these streaming sites like Prime Video or Apple or Netflix. But you're just posting it on social media, and just, the engagement there is high, and you have a repertoire of different films that you've made. So it's like basically it's a film company that is funded by product placements.
Yeah. Are you asking about my company, or?
I guess this concept that you're describing, I imagine, is what you guys do for the most part.
Yeah. Well, for us, like, you're a marketing expert, right? Like, the distribution channel is always the most important thing.
Right.
So for a brand, yeah, like I was saying, it's easier than ever to make like a creative commercial or do narrative stuff, but finding the channel to post it through is the big deal, And so that gets back to me, like, this is why I've been doing a lot of work with like micro drama companies, these companies that do these like these whole TV series, but they'll be in 90-second increments. It's kind of this like growing phenomenon. But one of the things here is they get like tens of millions or hundreds of millions of views.
Wow.
So this is a channel that is probably won't be for long, but is currently extremely underpriced. And, if you came to me with a brand, if you're like, again, like I have my organic kombucha, for a couple $1,000, like you could show up in something in a show with like real actors and good production values. That's going to be seen by like a lot of people. But it's all about the distribution channel, and it's all about the goal. And I'm sure that this too. Like if you're a fitness, something fitness related, like work with a fitness influencer or go to a fitness conference. Like don't go to like a pizza workshop or something like that.
Yeah.
So and this is more complicated than it used to be. Like back in the day, you had like 3 channels, and when my parents were kids, like what, 30 or 40 channels when I was a kid. And if you get on one of those, it's like you see a lot of people, and if you aren't going to be on one of those, there's not much you can do about it. Like there's not a whole lot else available. Today there's like 10 million channels, and everything's up for negotiation. You can do work with YouTube people. You can work with like YouTube channels that do narrative stuff. You can do Instagram like influencers. You can work with like put stuff on TikTok. You can, I mean, everything on the sun. So it's much more complicated, but there's a lot more. The menu is much larger than it used to be for where you can place your content.
Well, I guess with the placement in these like mini shows, these 90-second clips that you're talking about, you say it depends on the goal.
Mm-hmm.
There's not really much. You don't really have that many options with the goal, because it's almost always going to be top of funnel.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no path to conversion directly on the viewing, right? Like they would have to, for example, they're having a scene and somebody takes out like some kind of branded wallet that looks really cool, like a leather wallet, right? It's like very fashionable. He's taking out his credit card. You don't have an ability to even know what that brand is or buy it unless like you like stop the video, like look at it really closely, then go on Amazon and try to like search the name, right? So it's all of it is really just like awareness building. Would you say that's true, or there's some other setup there?
You can add stuff to it. Like you can have things like affiliate links in the social media ads that go out promoting it if you cut a deal with them. We've also done things with like essentially like behind the scenes stuff with the actors, where they post to their social media, and they may have like a promo code or something. But you're right. Yeah, for that stuff, it's and that is one of the downsides, is it really is this awareness piece, but you're not, the micro drama companies, there's no pop-up link. There's no equivalent of TikTok Shop.
Yeah.
At least not yet. TikTok's actually getting in that game, and they might start doing that because they're building. They launched one micro drama platform and are starting to host stuff on there. So this may change, but you're absolutely right. And it's the same thing with like traditional TV. Like if you get a deal with Stranger Things or whoever, you're going to get a lot of eyeballs on it. But it is always the question of what's the conversion from views to like, intent to actual purchases.
I would argue that that's different because probably the brands that can afford Stranger Thing placements are already known brands who are just inflating themselves even further.
True.
Like
Yeah.
I don't imagine it's like new brands that are like new to the market, like trying to break through. These are going to be your legacy brands, which everybody knows and recognizes, like a Heineken. It's
Of
like,
course, yeah. Or Gatorade with
or
actual
Gatorade.
Stranger Things. Yeah.
Exactly.
100%,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
So there's a little bit of a difference, but I see what you're saying, and I think that what you said about the social media posting along with the advertising of that mini drama would make a lot of sense behind the scenes, things like that. So there is some linkage that happens. So,
Yeah.
Jack, what do you do? Like, if somebody came to you and said, this sounds pretty interesting. Like, how do I engage with this?
Well, you would talk to me, and then I would start setting up meetings. Like think of myself as kind of agent facilitator. I have, relationships in the entertainment industry and have like talked to that side very extensively about how they like to do this stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, like a lot of these things, if you came to me with your brand and was like thinking about alternative advertising, discuss what your goals were, and again, that thing of, are you trying to get top of funnel awareness, or are you really trying to get like, are you a new brand that needs sales right now? In which case, what might make more sense is influencer marketing, or again, like just running like just a social media campaign that's super targeted at your demographic, or of course, maybe going out to conferences or whatever the case may be, or setting up a table outside Sprouts and giving out free samples. I don't know, like whatever. But if it did make sense to approach, like, to look at the the various ways of being integrated like organically into entertainment, then I start setting up meetings. Like basically I have a bunch of these companies make a pitch to you to be like, oh, here's how you can be in this show, here's how you could be in this series, and then you kind of gauge whether any of these make sense.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Jack,
Yeah.
I mean, I think you're doing something pretty different. I've certainly never heard of this approach myself, and I've your interview number 80 here, so that's pretty incredible. Yeah, I appreciate you coming on and sharing all these insights for the viewers and for myself.
No problem. Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So, Jack Connor, find you on LinkedIn and your website, almarigroup.com. Is that right?
That's right, my friend. Thank you,
Awesome.
Pasha.
Thanks, Jack.
All right.
Catch you on the next one. Thanks
Okay.
everyone for
Appreciate it.
watching. Bye bye for now.